Again, the edtech giant has now reported, in fact, initiated layoffs via phone calls. Media reports suggest that BYJU'S is letting go of staffers without PIP notice period amid financial constraints. BYJU'S new round of layoffs may impact anywhere between 100 to 500 employees, especially those in the sales function. Remember, this comes barely 24 hours after BYJU'S floated an internal email suggesting there will be a delay in salaries, post which we're now given to understand layoffs have been initiated at the edtech giant. What's really happening and how are financial constraints panning out at BYJU'S? What's the future like? To discuss that, we have Krishna Kumar and Karthik Malhotra here. Karthik, I want to begin with you. We discussed in the morning as to how the financial constraints at BYJU'S has resulted in delays of salary again. Does this come as a surprise to you? The layoffs have started just hours after.
I think the timing of it, Shweta, is definitely surprising, because in the morning we saw yesterday BYJU Ravindran had written a letter to employees and really saying that they are struggling to pay salaries, struggling again to make payroll, but promising that by 8th of April the salaries would be credited, even at a time when the February salaries are only partly paid thus far. The timing of it is obviously a little suspect, because you send a mail one day that salaries will be credited and the next day you sack people, and the numbers are fairly staggering. Anything between 100 to 500 is what initial reports right now are suggesting. But the whole cost-cutting measure, the whole cost-cutting exercise at BYJU'S is no surprise, because we've seen recently they have shut down offices. Everybody has gone back to work from home. Barring the corporate office in Bangalore, all other facilities that housed the staff of BYJU'S have pretty much been locked out. So BYJU'S is struggling with its financial runway. It doesn't have enough money in its bank, and I think getting rid of the sales team, which seems to be a bulk of this new number which is emerging, seems only obvious, because do you have really something to sell that people want to buy?
Absolutely. So there's not enough sales is what we're given to understand, not enough revenue trickling in, as a result of which salaries have been delayed. Krishna, once again, we've tracked this story for a while now, and we know that BYJU Ravindran is faced with multiple battles on multiple levels. But on the basis of the email that was floated internally yesterday, BYJU'S has acknowledged that they do not have enough money. The money that was raised via rights issue has also been put on hold in an escrow account. That currently is being dealt with NCLT or by NCLT. Run us through what is happening exactly at BYJU'S, the turmoil that BYJU'S is facing.
The hope, the last ray of hope in terms of cash flow at least, was that rights issue, right, of $200 million. And then that is stuck in litigation simply because the foreign investors fear that the valuation at which that rights issue raised money would bring BYJU'S down to what, less than $1 billion from what was once used to be a $22 billion company. This is a straightforward tussle between the foreign investors and BYJU Ravindran. So hence that $200 million which BYJU Ravindran was hoping will give in some cash flow to work with, at least in the near future, that's gone too. And that's the reason why they've delayed salaries for the last 2 months. And now comes this news of people being fired on phone calls. People, when an employee went and asked, how come, when an employee was let go, when they asked, why were they let go, your performance is bad. If your performance is bad, how come you didn't put me in a PIP or a performance improvement plan? That's the and then you see the employee improves, and then you, as a procedure to in fact let go of an employee who's not delivering the kind of performance the company is looking for. None of those protocols have been followed over here. People have been let go on, and then straightforward you just send a mail saying that your employment with the Think and Learn Private Limited, which is the company that holds BYJU'S, will cease to exist as of 31st March 2024. That's the kind of sackings that have happened now of 500 to 1,000 people. And we're talking about more than 10,000 people who've been let go of BYJU'S, since the downfall of BYJU'S began. When you ask BYJU'S says this is part of the cost-cutting strategy that began in October 2023. So that is the official line coming in from BYJU'S. But the fact of the matter is that since October 2023 to now, things have gone from bad to worse for BYJU'S, Shweta.
All right. And Karthik, before we move on, should employees and existing customers of BYJU'S be worried at this point in time between the battle of BYJU'S management and the foreign investors? It's the customers and the employees who are losing.
Obviously, employees need to be worried, and for those who are still hanging on to any hope that the company is going to revive, well, they'll have to live with that hope for a very long time. So employees definitely need to worry. Customers, on the customers front, I mean, does BYJU'S really have the kind of customer base that it was once catering to anymore? How many of those customers are locked in with those tablets and with those learning modules that they've paid, let's say, a yearly subscription for, who will perhaps not renew that subscription next year, given all the negative news around BYJU'S? So customers need not worry as much as employees because they already have the delivery of what they paid for. Employees, obviously, who are still staying back at BYJU'S would need to worry because nobody knows how long they've got in the company, and in a company which does not see any future as we sit and talk today.
Right, it looks like end of the road for BYJU'S, at least for now. A company that is embattled in various court cases, currently fighting its foreign investors, has delayed salaries and is now on a sacking spree. But before we close for break, Vistara, the airline, has now cancelled approximately 60 flights. As of today, Tuesday, the airline cancelled approximately 50 flights on Monday, which was yesterday. The Ministry of Civil Aviation has sought a detailed report from Vistara regarding a flight cancellation and major delays as the airline cancelled over 100 flights in the past week combined. The regulator has directed Vistara to comply with rules regarding facilities that need to be provided to passengers in case of denied boarding or flight cancellation, as well as delays. The airline has now attributed, remember, flight disruptions to a shortage of pilots as it announced measures to alleviate the situation. These include reduction in flight operation and utilization of the wide-body aircraft on domestic route. But is it enough? Will the pilots who are on leave en masse come back? What is the current issue, Karthik? Krishna, we've been talking about it. You've spoken to some of the pilots that you know of. Is the stalemate continues? Are the pilots coming back anytime soon?
I mean, I don't know whether they're going to show up to work tomorrow or not. I haven't really heard anything from the people I have spoken to. But yeah, I think pilots just decided to en masse go on sick leave. And that sick leave has thus resulted in a shortage of pilots and hence the inability of Vistara to resume operations and continue flying those aircraft which are now grounded thanks to the pilot shortage. The crux of the issue really is that Vistara up until now was paying a mandatory 70 hours worth of flying hours as fixed pay to pilots. Now, to bring parity with the decision it had taken with Air India last year, it has reduced that MSP, so to speak, of 70 hours down to 40 hours. And 40 hours is what Air India as well as Air India Express pay the pilots as fixed salary. Vistara pilots are unhappy because their paycheck now takes a haircut of about 1,20,000 rupees a month. And as a result, they are unwilling to go ahead and sign that contract of the revised, salary structure which the company is offering them. But the company has also made it very clear, Tata Group incidentally, that if you don't sign this document, then we would be deemed to understand that we will not consider you and you'll be okay with us not considering you for any promotion plan, any upgradation plan, and you will be taken off that upgrade sequence in your career. So I think pilots are obviously in a flux right now. It's not that there are multiple airlines looking at hiring a lot of pilots and they can jump plane and land up at somebody else's doorstep.
And
that's
Krishna,
not happening.
they're not spoiled for choices at the moment. Very limited few airlines that will employ them, including Indigo, SpiceJet, which is also currently battling with its own problems. Akasa for one, but not a lot of choices out there for pilots to actually jump planes to.
Right, but the fact of the matter is that both Indigo and Akasa, correct me Karthik if I'm wrong, they actually pay a minimum of 70 flying hours.
That's right.
In fact, so if they were to jump ship, then Indigo and Akasa are the obvious choices that they should be making because they give the paycheck that they are asking from Vistara and they were getting from Vistara. Now, this is all post-merger consequences that Vistara is facing. And apart from the fact that, they're taking a haircut, they're also, the Tata Group has made it clear the one-time payment that they're supposed to get for signing on this contract, they won't be getting that. And also going forward, future opportunities to work and fly more hours for Air India as well. So they lose out on both. And looks like the pilots are saying, we're okay with that.
And it's the customers, it's the flyers who are suffering as over 100 flights have now been cancelled as of this morning. 60 to 50 yesterday, about 70 on Tuesday, and the stalemate likely to continue in the coming few days as pilots will not look like they are relenting anytime soon as far as their paychecks is concerned. But we'll be back with more updates on the other side. Stay tuned.
Film and entertainment is definitely one of the levers for any country to build its brand.
We are getting global. I feel that we're just on the takeoff.
More and more films are becoming language agnostic.
Content is a universal language.
There's one audience in the world
Absolutely. End of the day, we all are like brothers who have mutual respect for each other from a different land.
Watch Allu Arjun on Duologues with Barun Das. Streaming on News 9 Plus.
India produces between 1,500 and 2,000 films every year, the highest for any country. But they get ignored at international awards.
The Oscars are basically American national awards for themselves.
You're not going to be able to make a better pizza than an Italian chef. You're not going to be able to make a better sushi. Make better sushi than a Japanese chef. Will you make better khichdi than a Japanese chef? Right? So I want you to taste my food. We are making cinema that we are proud of.
In fact, it has been 2 decades since an Indian feature film featured in the Oscars International Film category.
All these years, for much of its history, they've been just awarding their own films, and this one tiny category, Best Foreign Language Film, had the entire world frothing at the mouth to get into the Oscars.
This and more. Streaming on News 9 Plus. News is now content. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
Welcome back. You're watching Business Plus. Gold prices have surged to an all-time high yet again in April, driven by expectations of interest rates reduction in the US and the metal's status as a safe haven asset, and on account of the fresh escalations of geopolitical tensions in Central Asia. Gold prices today climbed a new lifetime high of $2,263 per ounce in international market. Spot gold prices also opened flat about $2,233 per ounce levels, but soon gathered upside momentum and touched an intraday high of $2,259 level, which turned a new record high for the yellow metal. What exactly is moving gold prices, and should you buy, hold or sell? To discuss that, joining us is Kunal Shah. He's the head of commodities research, Nirmal Bang. Also with us is Harshal Barot. He's a senior consultant, South Asia and Middle East metals focus. Harshal, I want to come to you first. Thank you for taking time out. What are we making of what's happening with gold prices? We understood that in the month of March, especially for India, the consumption of metal was down by about, the yellow metal was down by about 90%. Yet gold prices touching an all-time high. What's moving prices for precious metal?
So Preeti, when it comes to the demand reaction to the price, typically, when you see period of price jump, consumers tend to hold back on their purchases. So that's a typical reaction that we see from consumers across the world. But, gold prices in a way are sentiment driven to a large extent, and physical market signals, when they tend to impact the market, comes with a bit of lag, when you see on ground how demand is reacting. So for now, as you said, geopolitical tensions, central bank buying are some of the major drivers of the price. And since the price has, breached past certain technical levels over the past few days, we've seen, more speculative activity happening in the price. So we saw quite a bit of rally when even the US and Western markets were closed. So in a sense, there is possibility that we might see some cooling down in the near term. But given that, interest rate expectations, typically when, interest rate cuts start, they tend to be positive for gold. So we could see, whatever corrections that come could be short-lived.
All right, Harshal. Kunal, thank you also for taking time out, and good to have you back on the show. Are you looking at a temporary reduction going forward? Do you agree there with Harshal? So would you therefore suggest consumers to hold on to that gold purchase just as yet, or it's never a bad time to buy gold?
Well, the possibility of correction due to any reason is real thing. If you see what has been happening from last 2 years, every time you see a small bout of correction, those are short-lived. I reiterate to remain long in gold. I see it as a strategic buy, not from now, from last 2-3 years. and I continue to do that. I continue to recommend that going forward. So price level doesn't matter. Okay, even if it is 68, 69,000 or 70,000, it doesn't matter. It's a strategic buy. You should have it. There are a lot of things happening around the world which makes a very strong case to remain or park your money in gold. So even if you're buying at this rate and if it goes down by another, say 5-10%, it doesn't make any difference, because we are at that kind of time. We don't know what is going to happen on the geopolitical front, when we don't know how the central banks are going to, what they are going to do if the inflation soars again, how they are going to control it. What is the end of this? Whether we are going to see a temporary a dip in rate cuts, or whether it is going to be prolonged, and if yes, then what is going to be the status of inflation? So it's like a big questions, going forward. And in this kind of time, when central bank themselves have been buying gold aggressively, they don't have any other alternatives right now. So forget about the official numbers. The countries like China, Russia, we don't know how much they are buying. They are not releasing their numbers, how much holding they are having. They just released, China is just releasing the monthly numbers. So it's a strategic buy. It is heading towards $2,350, $2,400. Like Harshal said, there can be a short-term correction or due to any reason, but it makes a strong case to remain in gold, not to sell gold. Don't look at Indian demand, say it's down by 80%, 90%. It happened a lot of times when the demand is down, the jewelry demand is down. It doesn't mean a weak case or a crash in gold prices. Small bout of correction here and there is a part of the real journey, which is looking very bullish.
Okay. The one question I want to ask at this stage is, what is the best way of investing in gold right now? Does it still make sense to go for, say, sovereign gold bonds or gold mutual funds or gold ETFs, or just buy gold, the real gold, the physical gold?
I believe that.
Yes, Kunal, we'll go with you first. We'll get you, Harshal.
Yes, I think the best way, if you want to invest in the financial products, definitely sovereign gold bond is the best form of investment. It fetches you 2.5% interest every year, and I think the gold prices gain also you are going to get, and 2.5% interest rate which you are going to get. So if you want to invest from the financial aspect, then the sovereign gold bond are the best one. In ETF, they have a 95% threshold. They do not invest 5% remaining cash which you give to them. They make that as a cash component, and you do have a AMC charges. So I will not recommend gold ETF. But actually, if you go back in time and if you study the history, it's actually good to own gold, because we don't know on the geopolitical front if this Cold War suddenly becomes a hot war. So what you see, what is going on right now in Europe, in Middle East, in Asia also, China, Taiwan, whatever is going on, it is just a start of a Cold War which is going on from last 3 years. Just imagine, God forbid, if something of full-fledged war takes place, then it makes sense. It makes a strong, compelling case to have some amount of physical gold as a hedge against whatever uncertainty which may arise out of any geopolitical conflict. So I still make a very strong case. If you have 100 rupees in gold, have 20 or 30 rupees out of the 100 as a physical gold.
Okay, Harshal, if I can come in and ask you this question, that there is usually this trend of an inverse relationship between gold and equity markets. But for the last 18 months or so, we are seeing that both gold and equities are moving in the same direction. How do you explain this anomaly?
So that's a very good question. So, people tend to speak about gold purely in safe haven terms, but what is happening currently in global financial markets is that we are seeing basically a rally in everything. We have seen the massive rally in US equities, particularly the tech stocks in the US. We've seen, very good rally even in Bitcoin. So, primarily, it's the expectations that rates are going to go lower from here. That despite the series of rate hikes we've seen, the US economy is still robust, and in this scenario, when eventually rates are going to start easing, because inflation has started to ease, we are going to see very sort of a perfect macroeconomic environment for growth. So in that sense, that is why all the assets are basically rallying together. And when it comes to gold, of course, there is an element of diversification that is happening, given the rally in global equities as well. Increasingly, since the Russia-Ukraine conflict, we've seen global investors parking, some of their money in gold as well, as a hedge against uncertain times. So more equity prices go up, I think, the requirement of gold as an allocation in the equity portfolio also goes up. So we see incremental buying coming even in gold. So that's why you see this positive correlation between stocks and gold.
All right, Harshal, Kunal, thank you very much for taking time out. Thank you for joining us here on Newsline. Well, gold prices, they're climbing at an all-time high in the first 2 days of April itself. But shifting focus, Ola's self-driving autonomous electric scooter Solo is not an April Fool's joke. Ola CEO Bhavish Agrawal has set the record straight on the buzz around Ola Solo. Now, Ola launched a new electric scooter called Solo on 1st of April. It was touted as India's first autonomous electric scooter. Ola CEO, however, listed its features, saying that it will be a fully autonomous AI-enabled traffic smart scooter. Many people thought that it was an April Fool's joke, but apparently it's not. Bhavish Agrawal says that while it is meant to provide a laugh to people, the technology behind it is something that Ola has been working on and have prototyped. It shows the kind of pioneering work in engineering that the Ola team is capable of. Now, Ola Solo is a glimpse into the future of mobility, according to Bhavish Agrawal, and their engineering team are working on autonomous as well as self-driving tech two-wheeler, which will be a future very soon. So on your screens, that two-wheeler, autonomous, self-driven, would in fact be a reality in coming time, could come out of Ola's stable anytime now. Now, when that promo came out, we all laughed at it. We thought, oh, lovely, now we'll have self-driven two-wheeler as well. It's not a joke after all.
Yeah, it's not a joke. And unfortunately, I still feel I'm going to be really scared risking my life on something that does not have a rider. And it's pretty much the same when people talk about flying taxis, autonomous flying taxis, walk into a helipad, enter your destination, sit, and the machine is going to take off and take you to your destination. Well, I think I'm still old school in that sense, and would want somebody to blame or somebody to hold responsible, accountable for the safety of my life. And I mean, we've seen these autonomous projects, many of them take off, most of them shut down. In fact, most recently, I think Apple has also announced that it's not going to pursue its autonomous vehicle plan. Tesla and Google, on the other hand, are still doing it. We've seen Cruise, a self-driven Chevrolet Cruise in US actually driving as taxis in some parts of Western USA at least. So, I think the lobby is fairly mixed, because the fundamental question is, at the end of the day, if this vehicle, or rather when this vehicle, because it's not going to be 100% safe, when this vehicle crashes, who is to blame? Okay.
Well, it hasn't crashed yet, but it's definitely crashed the internet with a lot of people talking. Imagine world's first two-wheeler autonomous coming from Ola, which is an indigenous company based here out of Bengaluru. It is going to change the world in a lot of ways. Obviously, the features that were listed out were very interesting. I think one of the features that got my attention is, if you park that vehicle, it'll come to you automatically using one of the modes.
Right. Of course, it's fascinating. The promo video does paint a very interesting picture. The only question is, right now there are questions on the electric scooters being rolled out of the plant of Ola, the regular electric scooters, and how safe they are, whether they go up in flames or not. So we are at a stage where we are perfecting the electric scooter, electric two-wheeler game in the first place. And from there to an autonomous self-driving electric scooter is a giant leap for all mankind, not just Indian companies for sure. So I would really, hold my horses and see how this plays out. First of all, this needs an approval from authorities to be flying on Indian roads. How many state governments will be comfortable, city municipalities will be comfortable allowing these? I mean, we have states and city corporations who are still doubtful about drone deliveries, right?
It hasn't taken off. That whole project hasn't taken off.
When the first drone delivered pizza happened, we thought, okay, the future is here. The future is great. Now all of them, we're going to get all our pizzas through drones. None. We still have people driving two-wheelers and delivering us our food. So I'm going to really hold my horses and wait and watch on this one.
All right, gentlemen, while you guys are being a bit, not very optimistic out there, I am extremely optimistic about what this will bring on as far as future is concerned. Well, Ola Solo there on your screens at this point, which will be India's and in fact world's first autonomous two-wheeler coming from Ola here in India. But before we close this bulletin, India's manufacturing industry also witnessed a solid growth in the month of March. The numbers have now come out, expanding at the fastest pace in 16 years due to accelerating demand, hiring increased, trends and strong ratio in 6 months. Now, manufacturing purchasing index compiled by S&P rose to the highest since February of 2008 in March of 2024. PMI climbed a 16-year high at 59.1 in March from 56.9 in February. The notable improvement in operating conditions reflects stronger growth of new orders, output as well as input stocks, as well as renewed job creation here in India. As far as manufacturing is concerned, 16-year high in India in the month of March. Well, on that, I think we'll close this bulletin. Thank you very much for watching.
Running in the snow is a much more tougher thing than running just in the altitude.
जहाँ से मेरे को लगा था कि इट वुड बी ए पीस ऑफ केक, इसके लिए बहुत मेहनत करनी पड़ती है, जैसे दिखता है वैसा होता नहीं है सर।
स्नो होते हैं और उस पर काफ़ी भागना दिक्कत होते हैं, हमारा स्लिपरी होता है, पैर फिसल जाते हैं उसमें।
Challenges, toughness, breathing air, everything is very, very different from the plains marathon.
It is definitely much more tougher.
Marathon. One utterance and the term transports you to a near-dawn experience, pacing athletes, and a lot of sweat. Now imagine all of this but in the frozen climbs of the Himalayas. This is exactly what transpired at the third edition of Asia's only and